Hi class, so welcome to our second lesson for personal development, and this is middle and late adolescence. So here are our learning objectives for this lesson. So hopefully to explain the various principles of development. So later on we will discuss these principles of development and also to classify various developmental tasks according to developmental stage in middle and late adolescence. So we will also tackle the developmental stage by Eric Erickson, and also to identify personal development in comparison with persons of the same age group. So one cannot go through adolescence without puberty. So every one of us has gone through puberty. So puberty is the first step towards the stages of adolescence. So let's watch more about puberty.
Okay, Wellcasters, gather round for some real talk. Today, we're going to talk about puberty. That's right, boys and girls, puberty. It's a lot like having your brain taken over by a zombie virus. Your face breaks out, you start to smell weird, you're constantly exhausted, and you grow hair in places. It may feel like you've turned into a zombie, but there's a silver lining. The exact same thing is happening to everyone around you. Today we're doing a slightly different walkcast that also happens to be a selfie. We're going to explain what's actually happening in your body and, more importantly, mind. Because right now, you're probably feeling like something else is working the gears. Today, we're taking you inside puberty. Hey, listen, what your mind and body are going through right now is definitely not nothing. In fact, it's a big freaking deal. Your brain is pumping out chemicals that affect everything from your body shape to the way you feel. But why? Basically, your brain is trying to help the rest of you grow up. In fact, according to researchers at Michigan State University, during puberty, your brain's job is to create new cells that help you properly transition into being an adult. These cells are created in the amygdala, the part of the brain that helps you handle social situations. So, yeah, these are the kind of cells you're going to need as you're going through middle school, high school, and dealing with all the other stuff in between. The other thing your brain is doing? It's flooding your body with hormones. These are the chemicals that make you sprout hair in weird places and grow 1.5 feet in a year. It was really fun. If you're a guy, hormones make your voice crack in inopportune moments. But I'm a girl. I didn't have to deal with that. Instead, I found myself crying in terrible moments even when everything was just fine. But what does it mean? Well, I'll tell you. It means you're going to gain about 17 to 18% of your adult height. You'll gain some weight too. Don't worry, this is normal. Your limbs will elongate at alarming rates, and your feet and hands will grow. It's awful. Who wants to sign up? But you know what? Here on Wellcast, we're not going to focus on the physical aspects of puberty. Believe us, you will be well aware of it when it happens. It's impossible to miss. Oh my God. The more confusing part of dealing with puberty, though, is the emotional consequences. You might be irritable at times, have heightened anxiety, and your self-esteem might take a hit. So, how do you deal with puberty? Well, we've got a few pieces of advice to deal with this period in your life. Get it? Period? Tip 1. Don't be embarrassed to talk to someone who's gone through this. Puberty is a super confusing time, so it's helpful to vent to someone who knows exactly what you're going through. Remember, every adult has been there, some more recently than others. Tip 2. A healthy lifestyle can go a long way towards being happier. Maintain a balanced diet and make sure you're getting all the nutrients a growing body needs. Seriously. Oh, and don't overload your already overloaded system with caffeine and stimulants. Puberty's bad, but turbo puberty, well, you use your own imagination. Tip 3. You need more sleep than you think you do. Wellcasters, have you been noticing that you've been dragging a bit lately? Okay, well, that might be for two specific reasons. Number one, during puberty, your circadian rhythm, which dictates when you fall asleep and how long you sleep, is going to change. You're going to be more inclined to stay up later, and you might have trouble falling asleep at night. And two, you're going through puberty, so you need more sleep. Remember, you still have to get up each morning for school, so your hours of rest are going to decrease. Sleep is super important, and a good night's sleep will boost your mood and keep you from getting sick, according to some studies. It'll even help keep your weight down. Tip 4. Just keep this in mind. Puberty is the green room for the rest of your awesome life. Hey, it might suck and stink right now, but that's because change is always difficult. During this whole puberty thing, try to remember that you're not alone in this. And even though it's hard to remember at times, there is a point to all of this. You're going on a taxing journey of growing up into the person that you're going to be for the rest of your life. It will get better. Tweet us at WatchWellcast. Email.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you more idea of what is puberty and also what you guys are going through right now. So I know that most of you are going through puberty, and again, the teachers, and also your parents are here to answer your questions if you do have about what you guys are going through. So especially in this kind of situation, you really need someone to talk to, someone who already has that experience. All right. So what is then the difference of adolescence and puberty? So for this lesson, then the adolescence is the transitional stage, or it's a period of development. So it's from enjoying your grade school time or junior high school time to, so there's a bit of, so there is now a transition from that level to the senior going to college level. All right. So the responsibilities, the duties that you need to accomplish, okay, is quite different now. You will be more you will be more independent, okay, more dependent on yourself than when you were in grade school or junior high. You were so dependent on your parents and teachers, but now in high school, in senior high school, then college, you will be very independent from your parents and somehow your instructor. So you will be guided, but still you will be focusing on your own development. And of course, the puberty here, these are the physical changes that you feel, you see, okay, within you. All right. So child to adult, right, so child to adult, these processes, okay, are vital in understanding how one proceeds into a child, from an infant, and then into adolescent. So there are 4 significant terms that must be defined first. So the first term is growth. So this is when a child grows inches in a couple of months. It can be measured and seen. So I have, excuse me, I have a baby and I see my baby grow. And I know that you guys have like your nephews or your nieces or even your siblings. You see them, you witness how they grow. You witness the change in the inches, okay, in their height, even in their weight. So growth is qualitative in perspective. An example of this is the increase in weight and height of a child. So as the physiological changes become grammatically evident, the comparison between adolescents becomes very visible. So that's the time we say that, oh, my baby is already growing. I am already growing, all right? Development. So this characterizes the changes that takes place from the conception of the child up to his adult life. So this would include growth and decline, which could be either a positive or negative. So development sees qualitative changes in an individual. So a child's perspective of the reason why goes to school definitely as he develops into adult. So the question, how was your concept of school from where you were in kindergarten, elementary, and now in senior high changed? All right. So again, here comes the responsibilities and duties that you need to accomplish or you need to fulfill. Maturity. So this is the process, or this process is biologically programmed to happen sequentially, right? So it's sequential. This mental progress varies in different life changes or stages. As the adolescent is given greater responsibilities, he is able to understand that this is part and parcel of the whole series of life. So being able to accept and undertake responsibilities definitely signifies the maturity of an individual. So in maturity, the moment that you accept that, yes, this is my duty, this is my responsibility, and you take action to it, that is already maturity. Last one is heredity. So when others sees you as a carbon copy of your parents, then hereditary is at work. So it's either physical or the character. So sometimes I'm not sure though if you always hear that, but sometimes the people around you, even your relatives, whenever you have your reunion and then they see you do something, they tell you, oh, you're like your dad, because when your dad was at your age, he also did that. So okay, so that's where heredity comes in. Or with uh, the face. Okay, oh, you look like your dad. Definitely, he's your father. Okay, so this means that your physical makeup is genetically shaped and influenced by your parents' DNA. So this DNA passes not only the physical traits but also intellectual and emotional attributes that manifest as one matures. And we always hear this, like when they have a very intelligent child, they'd say, "Oy, mana sa akin yan," right? We always hear that. The physical features of children, including their weight and sometimes their disabilities, could probably be attributed to their parents. So, next. So, development is again, as mentioned earlier, it is sequential, it is holistic, it is distinct and active. Now let's proceed to principles of development. Okay, so these are the development patterns expected of an individual, which will serve as guide to see and check whether the phases of development occur. So we see that development is sequential. An individual development follows a sequence. So the cephalocaudal principle as the obvious case. Okay, so infants are able to move their heads first before the arms and legs. I actually saw that from my baby. So when it comes to moving their heads, they move the eyes and then the nose, the lips. So it's from top to bottom. So this way, the sequence of development is formed the upper portion of the body down to the lower extremities. All right. Next is the proximodistal principle. The palmar grasp position is noticeable with a 4-year-old child asked to write for the first time. So the child almost entirely holds the pencil since the hand muscles are not yet developed. Thus, the sequence of control is from the shoulder down to the elbow and then to the wrist. So this is always the case before the child develops tripod position in writing. So the proximodestal principle explains that development starts with the central portion of the body going outward. So from center to outward. Next, development is distinct. So the age and level of maturation differs among individuals. That's true. It's not. It's not always. It does not always follow that if you are in the same age, or if you belong to the same age group, then you also have the same um, maturity or level of maturity. That's not true. So next is development is distinct. So the age and level of maturation differs among individuals, especially among girls and boys. In addition, people mature at varying age. So thus, there are children who develop skills earlier than other. It varies from individual to individual. And this yields distinct personal and social perceptions depending on whether puberty is early, on time, or delayed. That's why we have what we call the late bloomers. So some adolescents feel awkward playing outdoor games upon reaching puberty, since they are more conscious of their appearance and the opinions of others around them. But in my case, I'm actually not very fond of thinking about what people will say. What I just did when I was when during my childhood, I was already in college. I was still playing patintero or 10-20. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that kind of outdoor game or indoor game. Okay. Okay, next. Development is holistic. So development covers the physiological, cognitive, and socio-emotional dimensions. So as an emerging adult, one should not only focus in developing a singular dimensions and love behind the other aspects. So adolescents should find a balance among these dimensions. Some teenagers might find themselves excelling academically but are socially detached. That's why it's really very important that in the task that uh, the teachers make, there is collaboration involved, so that your social skill will also be developed. Not only the intellectual, but also the social part of your or the social area of your development. So development is also active. Development among the individuals is unstoppable. That's true. In any phases of life, whether one is a child, a teenager, an adolescent, or even in old age, development occurs. It is never passive. However, development could be positive or negative. So physical growth and emotional stability are examples of positive development. Because of aging, individuals in the latter years of development experience weaker memory and are unable to engage in physically strenuous tasks. Thus, they experience the negative implications of development. So even now, even I'm already at my late 30s, I still want to develop myself. Of course, in terms of shaping my body, shaping my mind, okay, I don't want to stop from learning because I want to develop the hunger in learning and also in developing my own. So let us not stop from learning and learning and learning. Okay. So developmental milestones. So this include the physical, cognitive, and emotional skills and task an individual acquires at different life stages. So these are the different life stages. So the synergy of these domains should be reflective in the life of an adolescent to have a full development. Critical thinking, reasoning, and logic are examples of developmental skills, while the task denote the application of such. So when we learn something, we apply. It should be noted that the understanding of these milestones should be coupled with the knowledge of the stages of development. Right. So these are the developmental areas. Developmental tasks brought about by change in an individual's life. So those who are successful with this task will experience happiness, while unsuccessful ones will feel societal disapproval and might be unable to fulfill latter responsibilities. So each developmental stage, okay, let's go back to okay, so here, each developmental stage has their own task depending on the group an individual is part of. So for the adolescents, so it begins at puberty and individuals at this age gradually assumes adult responsibilities. Alright? Psychologists divided the stages of adolescence into three. So we have there the early, middle, and late adolescence. So this time of changes and these changes must be welcomed and understood by us individuals. Achieving adolescent developmental task necessitates that the individual develops independence and a life philosophy. This is where knowing and understanding their developmental stage or stages with their corresponding skills and tasks, which vary in their middle and late adolescent stage. The middle adolescence, it's the transitional stage of physical, cognitive, and socio-emotional development that transpires between 15 to 17 years old. So most of you are in this stage. This is when they begin to be independent from their parents and become more attached with their peer groups. And the late adolescence. So this comprises the final years of adolescent stage, between 18 to 21. I guess there are some who are still at this stage, 18 to 21. At this stage, most adolescents enter the university where they tend to get overwhelmed with the changes from high school life onto the next stage. Biological changes in brain structure and connectivity within the brain interact with increased experience, knowledge, and changing social demands to produce rapid cognitive growth. The age at which particular changes takes place varies between individuals, but the changes discussed below begin at puberty or shortly after that, and some skills continue to develop as the adolescent ages. So for biological, it focuses on the physical and sexual development, which is determined by the genes and biology. Now, psychological. So Freud's psychodynamic theory, he believed that adolescence was a representation of our human ancestors' phylogenetic shift from being primitive to being civilized. So the assertion stood relatively uncontested until the 1950s, which psychologists such as Erik Erikson and Anna Freud started to formulate their theories about adolescence. So Freud believed that the psychological disturbances associated with youth were biologically based and culturally universal, while Erikson focused on the dichotomy between identity formation and role fulfillment. Later on, I will show you that. Even with their different theories, these three psychologists agreed that adolescence was inherently a time of disturbance and psychological confusion. That's why it's really it's very crucial. This part is very crucial for a person, um, or this stage is very crucial for you, for an individual. Okay, whether you will be developed into something positive or you will be developed into something negative, depending on, again, your depending on what will happen during this stage. So the less turbulent aspects of adolescence, such as peer relations and cultural influence, were left largely ignored until the 1980s. Um, So, focusing on the adolescence as a period of sexual excitement and anxiety. I believe in your SSO1, this will be discussed, or this has been discussed, the ego, superego, and the id. Alright? So, within you, you are identifying yourself, whether you are developing the ego part or you are developing the superego and the id. For id, this is the instinct. Okay? Si ego naman is the reality and superego is the morality. So say for example, you are in a situation, exam, ayan. So I'm gonna speak in vernacular. So exam, hindi ka may surprise quiz si teacher. Hindi ka ready ko. So anong gagawin mo? Syempre, tanananan instinct ang mauuna diyan. Ano yung instinct? Online exam naman pwedeng mangopya. O, diba? Yung yan, pumapasok si id dyan. Yan. Mangopya ako. Instinct yan Okay, yan yung lagi nating pang solve sa solution, pang solve sa problema natin. Okay? Ngayon naman papasok naman si superego. Ay sandali lang. Hindi tama ata na mangongopya tayo. Yan. Nasa loob mo rin yun. Yung parang yung tinatawag na konsensya. Teka lang, pero di ba minsan may nakukonsensya tayo na parang hindi kasi mali, hindi tama yun Di ba may nakukonsensya tayo kasi merong parang nagsasabi sa atin na or nagre-remind sa atin na hindi yan tama. Kasi nga dapat dapat ready ka lagi pag ikaw ay pumapasok sa school or pag may lesson. Para pag may pa-surprise man, makakasagot ka. Si ego naman yung, okay, sige. Ano ba dapat nating gawin dito sa sitwasyon na to? Mangungopya pa tayo para pumasa? Or huwag tayong mangopya at kung ano na lang yung natatandaan mo, yun na lang yung gagawin natin. Yan naman si ego. Si ego naman ang Kasi reality si ego, ipaparealize niya ano yung reality, ano yung sitwasyon. Doon ba tayo sa mali o doon ba tayo sa tama? Okay? Or may mga times din yung mga situation na nagbabudget ka, o lalo na ngayon sa sitwasyon ngayon, nagbabudget ka. So, hindi mo alam kung, tapos, syempre, lalagay ka ng listahan, magsusulat ka. Then you go to the grocery stores. Napadaan ka sa aisle na puro chocolate. Kahinaan mo yun. So, andyan na si Id. Isa lang naman, yun lang naman. Tsaka kailangan, tsaka sahod naman eh. O kaya allowance naman. Pwede mo naman sabihin sa magulang mo nang wala mo yung pera. Pero actually, pinambili mo. Nagets niyo yung point. So, dumadating tayo sa point na parang within us, yung inner part natin, merong parang nagsasabi na ito yung gawin mo kasi may desire ka eh. Yung desire na yun yung nagpa-pop up. Parang, yun yung impulsive eh. Yung parang, ay gusto ko nito. Hindi mo man lang pinag-iisipan. Okay? Tapos darating si super ego, parang hindi naman ata tama. And then si ego naman, yung, teka lang, i-balance natin. Ano ba talaga yung, baka naman pwedeng masusunod na lang yung chocolate na yan pag meron ka ng extra pera. Kesa naman yung gumastos ka, nasarapan ka, pero nagsinungaling ka. Diba? So, yan yung tinatawag na id, ego, at super ego. Okay, next. For psychosocial, it's the focus on identity formation. So, adolescents struggle between achieving identity and diffusion. Now, let's proceed to the 8 stages of psychosocial development. So, this is by Erik Erikson. So, this is what we call the identity formation, alright? You will also see this in your SSO1 lesson. So this is the basic trust. Okay, this should be what is being developed in the infant stage. Now, if this has been disrupted, what will be developed is the basic mistrust. So, paano ba mai-interrupt yan? Paano ba ma-disrupt yung basic trust na yan? Okay, one could be yung mga babies kasi, yung mga infant, usually, nagkikreate sila nung, syempre, bago sa kanila yung may sumisigaw. Ayun. So, yun, mahirap yun eh. I've noticed that sa anak ko, when yung aking baby, kasi nga, pag may sumisigaw, naririnig lang niya sa TV. Pag may sumisigaw, nag-startle siya. Yun, simula nun, pag may sumisigaw, parang naiiyak na siya. Okay? So, doon pa lang, kumbaga, na-develop yung basic mistrust. Okay? Na, syempre hindi naman nila ma-determine kung joke lang ba yung sigaw na yon o yung sigaw na yon is because out of anger. Okay? So, every time na makakarinig sila ng ganon, naiiyak sila kasi nga hindi nila alam kung ano yung nangyayari. So, feeling nila parang bad yun. Feeling nila na parang pag nakarinig sila ng ganon, negative yung impact sa kanila. Okay? And then, the autonomy, ayan, yung sa mga toddler, ito yung part na yung mga bata, pagdating ng toddler kasi, you need to teach them how to follow instructions. Ayan. Kasi nga, if you teach them how to follow instructions, paglaki nila, marunong sila. Okay, marunong silang makinig. Saka marunong silang maging independent. So, ayan yung pagsimula nung, kaya may mga pediatricians that they inform the parents na you give little instructions to the child. Halimbawa, or you give little activity. Say for example, pag nagkalat ang bata ng toys, what do? You also teach them. You let them see what you do next after playing. Ayun yung magpa-pack away. Okay? And then, ikaw naman. You do it. Ganon. Or another thing is, pag medyo malaki-laki ng konti, yung pagwawalis. Ayan. Ikaw naman, dili, try mo. But you have to show it first and then you let them do it. Okay? Next is the initiative. Ayan. So, dun sa initiative naman, wag nating papagalitan yung mga bata. Wag nating pagagalitan kapag, halimbawa, kasi dahil nga sa gusto nilang tumulong, ay, ang sarap palang tumulong, I find it so fulfilling na nakikita ko nakakatulong ako sa parents ko. So, syempre, magde-develop yung pag-i-initiate nila ng isang gawain. Kaya lang, may mga times kasi sobrang pagpilit nila ng pag-i-initiate, nakakabasag sila, nakakatapon sila, pero huwag nating pagalitan, alright? What we do is we still appreciate it. Kasi pag pinagalitan natin, yung mga yan, matatakot na yung gumawa. Ang dami nang iisipin ng mga yan. Iisipin na nila na, kasi baka mamaya, mali yung gawin ko. Diba? Mayroon tayong ganon, mga ganong episode na parang we feel so guilty na pag ginawa natin, baka mali. Kaya minsan ayaw na natin kunin. Okay? And then also yung pagiging, yung sa school ager naman, ito yung developing na yung pagiging, yung sa academic na, okay? So, wag naman nating ipahiya yung mga bata, okay? Yun naman yung dapat natin na iwasan. Again, if they experience that, then the inferiority will develop, okay? So, yun yung mahirap. Then we have the adolescent, ito na yung identity ninyo. So, nalalaman ninyo kung ano yung kaya nyong gawin, nalalaman niyo yung hindi nyo kayang gawin, pero gusto nyo siyang i-develop na para malaman nyo rin. Kasi kapag merong nagpo-put down on you, ang nangyayari, confuse ka, ay hindi ko naman kaya yan eh. Kasi nga, narinig mo sa iba na hindi mo kaya, pero sa totoo lang, kaya mo. Okay? Yun. And then we have the intimacy, of course, for the young adult, generativity, and ego integrity for the older ones. Okay. Based on the work of Piaget, it takes a quantitative state theory approach. So hypothesizing that adolescents' cognitive improvement is relatively sudden and drastic. The second is the information processing perspective. So, ito yung first, yung cognitive. Okay? So, the focus is on formal operational thought. So, moving beyond concrete. Ayan, yung sa sensory motor. Okay, yung sa touch. Ayan. So, yan yung sa anak ko. Kaya, may mga times na naglalamutak siya ng pagkain. Kasi nga, nag-e-explore na siya. Nag-start na siya mag-explore. Okay? So, yun, nararamdaman na niya unti-unti. Yun yung sa cognitive part. The second is the information processing perspective. Okay. Which derives from the study of artificial intelligence and attempts to explain cognitive development in terms of the growth of specific components of the thinking process. So, improvements in cognitive ability. So, by the time individuals have reached age 15 or so, their basic thinking abilities are comparable to those of adults. So, these improvements occur in 5 areas during adolescence. First is the attention. Then, yung improvements are seen in selective attention. The process by which one focuses on one stimulus while tuning out another. So divided attention, the ability to pay attention to two or more stimuli at the same time, also improves. Next is the memory. So improvements are seen in both working memory and long-term memory. Processing speed. Adolescents think more quickly than children. Processing speed improves sharply between age 5 and middle adolescence. It then begins to level off at age 15 and does not appear to change between late adolescence and adulthood. Lastly is organization. So adolescents are more aware of their thought processes and can use mnemonic devices and other strategies to think more efficiently. Ecological. So developmental area, ecological interaction between individuals and environment. So the focus is on the context in which adolescents develop. Adolescents are influenced by family, peers, religion, schools, media, community, and world events. Ito yung mga developmental area, alright? Next, social cognitive learning. Being courageous in standing up, and being different from your friends. Adolescents. Okay, so social cognitive learning focus is on the relationship between the social and environment and their influence on the behavior. So children learn through modeling. Okay, they learn through copying, not listening. So kaya nga 'di ba, you walk the talk. If you want the younger ones to follow you, you have to do it first. And then once they see that in you, then that's the time they follow. Kasi nga, they learn through modeling. Culture. Focus on the culture in which the child grows up. Okay? Sometimes, I'm not sure though, kung na-experience nyo dito, na-experience nyo ito, that when you from junior high school to senior high school, you had a hard time adapting to the culture. Kasi nga, especially if you guys go to school, kasi the culture there is quite different from the culture you had back in your junior high school. So, ganun din naman in grade school, unless you study in the same school during your grade school and junior high school years. Pero if you are transferring from one school to another, mapapansin nyo yung differences pagdating sa kultura. Okay? May mga times na pwede mo siyang meron nga ako noon it was my first time to teach here at MCL. And then I was surprised kasi nga yung mga estudyante, na-adapt nila yung kultura from their previous school. Hindi ko lang alam kung Don Bosco ito, where after every time na matatapos yung aming classes, yung magmamano sila, tapos magpapaalam sila. So, bye-bye ma'am. Hindi naman ganun yung kultura sa MCL. So, parang na-adapt nila, nadadala nila pa rin doon. So, yung iba gumagaya na rin. So, in short, na-adapt nila yung kultura ng iba. And, kasi nga, maganda naman. Alright? So, ayun. So, part din siya ng development. So, why teens are so moody? Let's watch this.
Being a teen can be an amazing time of discovery, learning, and friendship, but it's also a time of rapid change and emotional highs and lows where things can feel really tough. So, what's going on in our brains and bodies that make us feel this way? Why is being a teen so hard? We're often told that the most important years of brain development are between 0 and 5 years old, although recent research has found adolescent development to be equally important. During childhood, our brains continually grow, generating gray matter until they reach their maximum size, which for girls is around age 12 and boys around age 14. But even after this, the brain works to become more efficient by cutting away unused gray matter that isn't exercised by experience, and at the same time increasing myelin, which is fatty tissue that insulates brain pathways. Puberty begins in the hypothalamus, where a protein called kisspeptin is produced, triggering the pituitary gland to unleash the hormones testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. These activate the ovaries and testes, but also cause you to seek emotionally charged experiences, whether it's a movie to make you sob or driving 180 kilometers per hour down the freeway. It causes your response to emotionally loaded images or sounds to be more intense, which is why listening to One Direction may produce large bouts of the feels. The area of the brain responsible for planning ahead and assessing risk is still immature in teenagers, which is why teens are more likely to participate in high-risk behavior like unprotected sex and drinking and driving. Interestingly, in a simulated driving experience, adults and teens took the same amount of driving risks while alone. However, when surrounded by an audience of friends, teens took significantly more risks while adults were unaffected. What's the benefit of this behavior? Peer acceptance. In a study where teens were asked to rank music clips with and without knowing what their peers had picked, their choices changed. Unlike small children and adults, feeling socially isolated as a teen creates feelings of intense unworthiness. This, along with our biology, can contribute to teens prioritizing friends over even family. As social animals, stepping outside the safety of our family creates genetically diverse populations, diminishing the likeliness of inbreeding. In fact, teens have heightened social abilities like processing and evaluating facial expressions better than other age groups, allowing teens to be extremely cognizant of friends' joy, sadness, or stress. Speaking of stress, the hormone released in stressful situations to help soothe the brain cells of children and adults has the opposite impact on teens, causing an increase in anxiety. Pair that with a change in circadian rhythms, making you want to wake up 3 to 4 hours later than adults. It's no wonder some people describe teens as emotionally moody. On the other hand, teens are very physically healthy. The immune system is highly functioning, teens have increased tolerance to temperature changes, and a high resistance to cancer. But despite physical fitness, records show that death rates increase by 200 to 300% after childhood due to motor vehicle accidents, homicide, and suicide. Scientists believe that many changes in white matter, gray matter, and connections in the brain may be to blame, with an increased risk of errors during this time. But with a greater number of synaptic connections and increased plasticity, the teenage brain is primed to learn quickly and memorize content fast. Unlike an older brain rooted in what it knows, teens can respond easily to their environment and make incredible strides in communication and socialization. Not to mention, being passionate is incredibly valuable, and taking risks is often what is needed to make changes in your life and the lives of others. Being a teen can be tough, but it can also be amazing. If you want to know why teens are the biggest super fans and become obsessed with their favorite bands and shows, check out our latest ASAP Thought on the science of fandom. Links are in the description to see that video.
So I hope you get that, why teens are so moody. So it's still part of our development and part of puberty stage. So developmental tasks and skills of a Filipino adolescent. So being courageous in standing up and being different from your friends. Adolescent needs to feel he belongs to a group, which is true, right? Sino ba naman ang gusto na alone ka, diba? Well, there are times na we want to be alone, pero most of the time really want to be part of a group. While this is important, belonging to a group does not necessarily mean losing one's identity and being guided by mob rule or what the majority does. So this is especially effective when being offered to smoke a cigarette or drink alcoholic beverages, or even to try out dangerous drugs. Being courageous means learning to say no. Okay? So, ayan. Alamin mo when do you need to say no and when to say yes. So, developmental tasks and skills of a Filipino adolescent. Okay, so learning how media and advertising are trying to influence your thinking and feelings. Ang ganda-ganda ng mood mo. Pagkabasa mo ng isang post, biglang, pak, nasira. Okay? O kaya biglang, ang ganda-ganda ng mood mo kasi nga birthday mo, pagbasa mo, minambash sa kaibigan mo, so nagalit ka. So, nasira yung mood mo. So, never let the media or the social media or even the advertising influence you, okay? Or control your emotion. Or even dictate what your emotion should be. So, developmental tasks and skills of a Filipino adolescent. So, becoming aware, critical, and being involved with social issues. Syempre, ano pa rin, we still have to be responsible if we want to be involved with social issues like especially what's happening now. Well, ano naman yun, yung pagiging vigilante natin, wala namang problema doon, pero dapat nasa tama. Okay? Embracing healthy lifestyle. That's true, especially now, kailangan natin maging healthy. Sa sitwasyon natin, kailangan natin maging healthy. Okay? And developing spirituality. Since we are at home, mas maganda rin na we develop yung ating spiritual lifestyle. Prayer, ayan. Developmental tasks and skills, developing occupational skills, self-reliance, and ability to manage their finance, ayan. We really need to develop this kind of skills kasi nga, especially, again, very relative ngayon sa ating, very relevant, rather, ngayon sa ating sitwasyon. Social responsibility, mature work orientation, personal responsibility, and positive attitude toward work. So, I hope that you learned something, and that's about development in adolescence. See you guys!